This is from a piece, so it's from a collection called Unexpected Item in the Emotional Baggage Area, and it's called A Piece of Fluff. I was a bad child. I don't mean I behaved bad. I mean I was bad at being a child. I didn't do any of the things little boys were supposed to. That didn't matter too much in a family like mine, but when my granddad visited at Christmas, he would, unceremoniously, dump me and run off with one of my friends. His favourite was a kid called John Carter, a boy with an alcoholic dad who looked to my family for parentage far more than he turned to his own. He and my granddad hit it off right from the start. They'd sit there, piecing together Airfix kits or comparing penknives with a cross-generational Boy Scouts picture. My granddad would even bring him a Christmas present. "And how's John Carter doing?" he'd say in his occasional phone calls, after yawning his way through 5 minutes of my life. "Okay," I'd reply, cagily. "Has he managed to do anything about the north wall of that treehouse?" he'd ask, like a business partner discussing a difficult project. I told him he needs sturdier nails, that plywood will just warp. Back in the 1980s, board games were still the glue for most family get-togethers. And like pets, their condition seemed somehow to mirror their owners. The complete, orderly Monopoly sets tended to come from complete, orderly families, with all their members still in the correct places. No hippie-ish cohabitations or messy divorces. No sudden new brothers or sisters. No substitutions. Not like us. In my family, Colonel Mustard was a piece of fluff. Professor Plum was a Lego brick. Not even a plum-coloured one. And the iron piece on the Monopoly board was just a scrap of paper reading iron. "Okay," I said, miserable with envy. "I'll tell him." Whatever my successes as a kid, being my grandfather's grandson certainly wasn't one of them. He was a real boy and I just couldn't do it. Soccer or go-karts were right out, but even the genteel middle-class hobbies of that pre-internet age seemed vaguely pointless to me. I tried, but couldn't really get passionate about Hornby trains or pneumatic Lego, the heroine of the Lego sliding slope. The geekier kids I knew had telescopes and gleaming chemistry sets. I asked for one, and within 3 days, my chemistry set looked like someone had blown their nose inside a first aid kit. The worst, however, had to be Airfix. Who wanted to waste an entire afternoon gluing on the tail fin of a glider when they could have been watching mindless crap on TV? "I'm just putting the finishing touches to my Spanish Armada," a friend would say, modestly demonstrating a sail fleet good enough to win Arts Council funding. I think I skimped a little on the fore and aft rig mizzen mast and the seaway detailing, but how's yours? We'd cast our eyes sadly over my soggy mass of balsa wood, my aborted stem cell of a Spitfire, its wheels stuck somehow on top of its wing, its cockpit spewing glue, the fuselage sagging in the middle like it was 6 months pregnant. "Good," I'd say, and I'd wish that I'd spent the afternoon watching mindless crap on TV. So when winter came around in 1990, the year before I went to high school, and the last, really, looking back in my childhood, I found myself on the phone telling my granddad I was looking forward to seeing him at Christmas. "Is your friend John Carter going to be there?" he asked, with an eagerness that suggested that that might just be a deal breaker. "I guess so," I said. "Make sure you invite him round." He sounded like a kid back for the holidays. "Is your granddad coming this Christmas?" John Carter asked me eagerly that week, and I felt, not for the first time, like a returning soldier asked to pass on messages between a fellow corporal and his girl back home. When he arrived, my granddad had barely been there an hour, catching up with his daughter and her family, when, as if by some strange power of mutual telepathy, there came a knock at the door and John Carter burst in, rosy-cheeked, to be given a huge, welcoming hug by my granddad. Looking back, I have a feeling my memories are probably a bit exaggerated, but as I recall it, for the next few days, my granddad and John Carter were virtually inseparable. Mornings would find them out together, correcting the fourth wall of the treehouse and playing conkers. I tagged along, but I knew I was the third person in the couple. I half expected to be confronted by an irate neighbour, complaining that they'd kicked a ball into his yard, while that my granddad had been caught scrumping apples. I wonder if he'll like my play about sexual ambiguity in the nativity story, I wondered, as I trudged along behind them. With my hippie mum's endorsement, I planned to perform it on Christmas Day, as my granddad's present. How about we invite John Carter around for Christmas dinner? My granddad suggested brightly, his eyes shining. He'd love that. I never admitted to myself how much of a failure I felt from all this. But now, in retrospect, the whole situation seems more complex than it did at the time. My granddad was on paper a wealthy and responsible adult, family, successful business. But the only time he was really happy was prodding a sausage on a barbecue or steering a mainsail. When he jumped at the chance to build go-karts with John Carter, he wasn't reliving his youth, he was living his youth. 3 or 4 decades of coping with his disappointing hippie offspring, with their multiple partners and messy children, had only resolved his lifelong yearning to grow up in order to be 10 years old, when his dope-smoking daughter produced a suitably wishy-washy play-writing grandson. He at least had the satisfaction of thinking, I told you so. I think a family dinner on Christmas Day should be for family, my mum pointed out firmly. By this stage, the tensions were already simmering. She and my granddad threatening to revert, as they always eventually did, to adolescent rebel and maternal ogre, with me as the handy example of the results of irresponsible free love. From the distance of adulthood, I imagine the kind of dinner that John Carter had that day. Radio piping Wogan's Christmas classics, the out-of-work, alcoholic father slurring with brandy, the father who I never once heard say, well done, or good treehouse to his son. As for us, we worked our way through the turkey, pretending, just about, to be the kind of family that would have a full set of Monopoly pieces. And then we finished, and John Carter came round. And in the board game that followed, I was the piece of fluff. Thanks.